Yo, it is your boy Nice versus Wild, and you're listening to another episode of Bear Wall Sessions. Thank you for tuning in. Yet another week, yet another Monday, and you're showing up. I'm so proud of you. If you're watching on YouTube, it's definitely a change of set. I'm back in Melbourne, and you're in for a heck of an episode. I'm not going to lie. If this is your first time listening, my name is Nazil Shashil. I'm a full-time creative entrepreneur from South Auckland. I was born in a rural Fijian village called Lambasa, Bunileka, and my mission in life is to write a story that beats longer than my heart. Now, speaking of stories, there's a lot of stories to tell you this week. To be honest, I didn't really write many things in my diary this week, but I executed a lot, and I learned a lot from my executions, which I'm going to reflect on and hopefully give you guys some insights in terms of what I've learned. Before we get into it, big love to Feature Weddings for sponsoring every single Beer Wall session. Without Feature Weddings, there would be no Beer Wall session ever. But yeah, let's get into it. Now, this week, I wanted to share a story. Jumped on a plane. I'm in Melbourne, right? And I jumped in an Uber from the airport to get home. And this guy that was the Uber driver was actually from Afghanistan. And he's been living in Australia for over 20 years now. But he told me a story that really changed my perspective. And hopefully I can share it with you today and hopefully spark a different perspective in your own life as well. Now, I'm not going to name this person. Hopefully, I'm going to get him on in a Beer Wall session in sometime soon. And I've got his details and stuff like that. And I want to record it in a studio and really share the story in its full depth as well. So I got into this Uber and we started talking about. He asked me where I'm from, and I told him where I'm from, and then I asked him where he's from. He told me he's from Afghanistan, and he's been living in Aussie for a little while now. And I started talking about, everything that's happening in the world. I love asking questions every time I'm in an Uber, to be honest. And I like listening, and I'm very big on asking questions and really understanding people's perspectives and worldviews, and really understand their lived experiences, because I feel like when we listen, we generally learn more. Because obviously, I've talked about it so many times, is you already know the things you already know. So you might as well get good at asking questions. And if you can get good at asking questions, you can really open people up and really understand their own experiences in their own life, which I can assure you there's always something to learn from somebody. So this was about a 45-minute Uber ride. I'm just going to lay down the picture for you. So it's a long trip from the airport to get to my house in Melbourne. And I asked him, obviously, where he's from, and he told me he's from Afghanistan. He said when he was 9 years old, there was a lot of war happening in Afghanistan, and his family and stuff like that got separated. And then he got when he was 9 years old, most of his family and his brothers, sisters, and stuff like that got moved to Pakistan, where from 9 years old to about 20 years old, he lived in a refugee camp. And this is all a true story. And he explained to me his experiences and all the bombardment, all the war crimes that he saw, all the experiences of his close family members passing away and dying, and just absolute trauma on trauma in terms of his experience growing up from 9 years old to 20 years old. And he was so grateful that he made it to Pakistan as a refugee to be able to have an opportunity at life. And obviously everything that happened in Afghanistan when he was 9 years old was definitely out of his control, right? But I could see how grateful he was, even working today as an Uber driver and doing the other jobs he does, which I'll get into at the end. But it just goes to show that, his experience and his worldview was completely different, and in a positive light. And we started talking about, everything that's happening in the world, and in the Middle East, and Gaza, in Israel, and all of the stuff that's really on mainstream media at the moment. And he started talking about, how the media doesn't show the positive stuff that happens in his homeland, which is Afghanistan. They always show the war. They don't talk about how many good things that has happened in Afghanistan over the years, and how many things that have been built, and how many nice cities, and how many good environments, and how good some of the government decisions have been made and helped people in villages and in organizations and communities. And I was so interested in his perspective, and it really taught me something that I talk about pretty much all the time on Beowulf sessions is, the media really does control the narrative, and mainstream media really does control the narrative, and the information that we get from TVs, from radios, from the things that we watch online can be really, really different from lived experiences. So I encourage you this week, this month, this year, going into 2024, really involve yourself in communities, environments that you are not comfortable in, and really get lived experiences into your journey, into your life. Because it's like reading a book a million times if you can have a conversation with somebody that's lived a life that you haven't lived. And I think there's a lot of value in that. So let's go back to the story. So 20 years, when he was 20, from 9 to 20, he was a refugee in Pakistan. And then, you won't believe this, he told me probably one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever had the pleasure to hear. And you probably, when I talk about this, you're probably not going to believe me. So get ready, all right? He illegally jumped on a boat, paid somebody $16,000 when he was 20 to 21 years old, took the biggest risk of his life, and for 10 days and 10 nights, he jumped on a boat to Australia. And he said it was so rough. And obviously there was other people on the boat that paid a smuggler money to try get him into Australia. And I think there's a lot of stories of people smuggling into Australia back in those times because there's so much war happening. And to this day, there's so much war happening around in those areas. And so the mainstream media probably talks about it 24/7 and the narratives they pitch. But he jumped on a boat, landed on Christmas Island after 10 days and 10 nights. He literally told me that he survived the last, I think he was like 4 or 5 days without any food and water. Like, can you imagine that? Imagine being on a boat for 10 days, 10 nights, and landing on taking the biggest risk of your life. And he said a lot of people died on the boat, and he was lucky enough to survive. And it's honestly such a miracle story. Even when I was listening to him telling me the story, I was quite in shock. And he was like saying that once he got to Christmas Island, it wasn't over. The Australian police caught him, and he spent 9 months in prison. He said exactly 9 months and 3 days. And he said he'll never forget. And he was lucky enough to get some sort of special visa protection grant that really helped him to, break free and be free in Australia as well, which took a couple more years, 2-3 years, and stuff like that before all of his paperwork got sorted out. But man, just for a minute, just think about the experiences he would have faced, and he literally took the biggest risk of his life, leaving a refugee camp in Pakistan and jumping on a boat, paying somebody $16,000, and $16,000 back, I think it was he's 42 now or something like that. So 20 years ago is a lot of money when you compare inflation. And he took the biggest risk of his life, and it really just put my whole movement into perspective. And a lot of times we struggle to make simple decisions in life, or struggle to take a chance on ourselves or back ourselves towards doing something in life. And this guy's story, I literally want to fund a movie on this at some point, because I feel like there's such a story here that a lot of times the mainstream media don't even put across. And I think there's a lot of strength in that. Obviously, what he did was completely illegal, but he was trying to just live a better life. He was trying to give himself an opportunity. And it takes a lot of courage to have that kind of courage in your heart to give yourself an opportunity to even towards life. And 10 days, 10 nights on the boat must have been an experience. And obviously we kept talking, and I think we're like 15, 20 minutes into this conversation, and I was just shell-shocked in the Uber. And I'm a big believer that you meet everybody for a reason, and there's a lot of meaning behind every interaction that we have in life, and I've always been that type of person. But man, I got his details. I was like, man, at some point we need to get you on the podcast in a studio and really try get everything, get all your stories in terms of what you experienced out of you, because I feel like a lot of people can really resonate, and a lot of people that listen to Be a Wool sessions can really resonate. This is a lived experience story, and everything I do in life has been for these moments. And I think meeting him was definitely for a reason as well. So like after all of that, landed on Christmas Island, stuff like that, and all his paperwork gets sorted. And then once everything gets sorted, I think it was like a couple of years later, his family and stuff like that is still back in the refugee camp in Pakistan. This next part is a little bit like I literally was almost about to cry when he told me this. So get ready. So I think it was 3-4 years later, he's still in Australia. His family's calling, his brothers, sisters are calling. He's like, hey, look, I want to come see you. Like, I'm going to try get into Australia. Sorry, his brother's telling him, like, I'm going to pay a smuggler and I want to come be with you in Australia. And you wouldn't believe what happened. So his brother tried to do the same thing that he did about 5 years later, and he didn't make it. He died on the boat. He drowned somewhere in Indonesia, where the authorities in Indonesia caught them on a boat to Australia. And the craziest part is there was probably, he was saying, about 50, 60 people on this boat that were trying to get into in Australia. And literally nobody survived, because the Indonesian authority let everybody drown and never let them come on water, because apparently there was a storm or something. The boat drowned. Everybody jumped out. They had life jackets on, but they literally died a painful death in water, and everybody drowned because the authorities weren't letting them inland. And there's also other details to the story. Obviously, once we bring him on, I think it'll be a great share in terms of understanding what he went through and his experience. And I was just feeling for him, to this day, his emotion and his thought of what happened to his brother. Like he talks about it like it was yesterday. And I think it really put my own life into perspective. And I think anything like that is if you go through that trauma, go through that struggle and go through that pain, it really just puts a whole different level of strength in your mind, and it's difficult. And that's all I'm going to say. It's difficult. So he lost his brother. That his brother was trying to do the same thing that he did, and his brother never made it. So I just wanted to share this story with you guys, to be honest, this week. And I know it's probably not a positive story to the fact, but I hope it teaches you that if you are privileged enough to get an opportunity in life, really make the most of it. And I talk about this all the time, is don't take a day for granted, especially if you live in this side of the world. There's so many people on that side of the world that's trying to escape from things that are out of their control. And I think hopefully this episode this week gets you in a perspective where that you do have a shot at the things that you are going after in life, and you do have a shot at the things that you truly care about. And if there's anything you need to do, is give things a go, because you trying can create a chain effect. And I talk about this all the time, towards more meaningful things. More meaningful things can bring about even larger change. And if you never try, and I say this all the time, if you never try, you'll never know. So keep at it, at your craft. If you're a creative, if you're a business owner, if you're an artist, if you're if you are an individual that's got a lot of heart in terms of what you are trying to do, and if you're not getting anywhere, I promise you, if you stay in it for long periods of time and keep showing up like we are every single week, and hopefully these stories, these conversations can help ignite a light in your heart to really bring about community change and bring about large-scale change. And hopefully the story helps you to see the light and in the lighthouse, that, you know, not all stories do come with happy endings, but some stories definitely do and some stories don't. And obviously his story of making it to Australia, creating a new opportunity, was such a positive story at the end, but him losing his brother was very difficult. And I think he left me with a couple more lines. He said that obviously after brother passed away, after a few years, he went back to he said that after a little while, his family actually, from the refugee camp in Pakistan, moved back to Afghanistan. So he actually went back to Afghanistan after the war kind of calmed down. And then he actually found his wife in Afghanistan, got married, and then his wife and him came to Australia. Now he's got 3 kids, and all of his kids were born in Australia, and he loves it here, and he loves that. Like, he never takes a day for granted, and he works like 80 hours a week still driving Uber, and then he also works in construction. And it's really such a inspiring story that we forget that so many foreigners that live in these countries are actually running this country, literally. And we shouldn't take anybody for granted. There's so much hard work, effort, and dedication that these people bring in our communities. And hopefully this inspires a new worldview in your head. When you see foreigners, when you see people from other countries that maybe English isn't their first language, you see a different light. And hopefully this story lights up a different light in your heart to realize that love does kill all stereotypes, and love does always win. And hopefully this sets a new worldview in your mind. So yeah, that's me. 17-minute session. There's a bunch of other stuff I wrote in my diary, which I'll share next week, but I think I'm going to leave it here this week. And I will catch you guys next Monday. If you've been enjoying these sessions, make sure you leave us a review. Go check out the visuals on YouTube. I'm recording this in my bedroom in Melbourne because the house was packed and I literally had no other way to record it. But I wanted to show up for you guys this Monday and really give you my heart in this conversation. And I'm so grateful that I met this guy in this Uber. And I still believe that you meet everybody for a reason. And I'm so grateful that I met this person as well. So yeah, peace and love. I'll catch you guys next Monday. Keep being a wolf. Keep going. Let's go.